The marble floors of Grand West Bank gleamed under the bright chandeliers. Wealthy customers in tailored suits moved about, their shoes clicking sharply. For them, this was more than a bank, it was a stage to display power. But at the far corner of the lobby stood a man who didn't fit the scene. Samuel Reyes, dressed in worn-out jeans and an old jacket, clutched a small leather wallet. His face carried the marks of a long week, tired, unshaven, but dignified. He had walked into the bank not for charity, but for something far simpler, to ask a question about his account. Samuel waited patiently in line. When he reached the desk, the branch manager, Victor Delgado, looked him up and down. Victor's eyes narrowed in disdain, as if Samuel's very presence stained the polished counters. "Yes," Victor asked curtly, tapping his pen. "I'd like to check if I still have a balance in my account," Samuel said quietly. Victor smirked. "You mean to tell me you don't know if you even have money in your account?" A few tellers chuckled under their breath. A group of customers, overhearing, exchanged smug glances. Samuel's ears burned with humiliation, but he didn't raise his voice. He simply nodded. "Yes, sir. That's correct." Victor leaned back in his chair. "Look, sir, this isn't a charity. If you can't even manage your finances, maybe you should try another bank, or better yet, a donation center." Laughter rippled across the counter. One of the clerks whispered loudly, "Maybe he came here hoping we'd hand him free money." Samuel inhaled deeply, his jaw tightening. And then, in a voice calm yet firm, he said something that silenced the laughter instantly. "If I have a balance in this bank, I'll pay you double for it. How about that?" Victor burst out laughing. "Double? From you? What do you even do for a living?" Samuel didn't answer. He simply looked Victor in the eye. His silence made the manager uneasy, though he masked it with arrogance. The teller pulled up Samuel's account reluctantly, clearly expecting an empty balance. But the moment the screen loaded, his face drained of color. He blinked twice, rubbed his eyes, and whispered, "Sir, this account, it holds." Victor leaned over, impatient. His jaw dropped when he saw the digits. $148 million. The room fell into stunned silence. Samuel Reyes wasn't a broke wanderer. He was the chief executive officer of Grand West Bank, visiting one of his branches incognito. He had inherited not just wealth but a legacy from his late father, who built the institution from the ground up. Samuel dressed simply, lived humbly, and believed in testing his employees, not by their performance reports, but by their character. Victor stumbled over his words. "Yes, sir. Forgive me. I didn't know." But Samuel raised a hand. His voice carried authority, steady as stone. "You laughed at a man who asked a simple question. You mocked him in front of strangers. Tell me, Victor, how would you have treated me if I truly had nothing?" Victor's face turned pale. Around them, customers shifted uncomfortably. The tellers who had laughed now lowered their eyes in shame. Samuel's gaze swept across the hall. A bank should never measure a person's worth by their clothing, or by how much they carry in their wallet. If kindness is not your currency, then you are bankrupt, no matter how much money you count. The silence was deafening. And then, Samuel did something unexpected. He turned to an elderly man waiting in line, a frail farmer with calloused hands and dusty shoes. Samuel asked gently, "Sir, what brings you here today?" The man replied softly, "I only came to withdraw $20 for my medicine. I was worried they might not even allow me." Samuel reached into his wallet, pulled out several $100 bills, and pressed them into the man's hands. "From today forward, this is your bank, and you will never be treated with anything less than respect." Tears filled the old man's eyes. Customers whispered among themselves, some moved to shame, others to admiration. Victor could no longer meet anyone's gaze. But Samuel wasn't done. He looked back at Victor, his words slicing sharper than any blade. "Tomorrow, the board will decide whether this branch keeps a manager who laughs at humility or finds someone who honors it." Sparkle CTA. End of section 1. What would you do if you saw someone being humiliated like Samuel? Would you laugh along or stand with dignity? Stay tuned, because Samuel's lesson of kindness is only beginning, and the shock that follows will leave everyone speechless. Section 2. The CEO's Lesson in Kindness. The next morning, the bank's boardroom buzzed with tension. Victor Delgado sat stiffly in his chair, sweating under his expensive suit. The incident from the previous day had spread like wildfire, not just among employees, but across social media. Someone had recorded Samuel's words, and overnight, the clip went viral. If kindness is not your currency, then you are bankrupt. Now millions were quoting it. Samuel entered the room quietly, dressed once again in his plain clothes. But this time, everyone stood when he arrived. Respect filled the air, not because of his billions, but because of the truth he had revealed. He began, "Yesterday I visited one of my own branches, not as a CEO but as an ordinary man. And what I found was arrogance where there should have been humility." His eyes scanned the table. A bank exists not only to protect wealth but to serve people. The farmer with $20 in his account deserves the same respect as the businessman with 20 million. Do we agree? The board nodded in solemn unison. Victor swallowed hard, trying to speak. "Sir, I was careless. Please, grant me another chance." But Samuel interrupted. "Careless? No, Victor. You were cruel. And cruelty is a disease that spreads quickly if not cut out." Silence fell. Victor knew his fate. Samuel then turned to the board. "This bank will not just deal in dollars. It will deal in dignity. Starting today, we launch a new program. Any customer, no matter their balance, will have access to the same services, respect, and courtesy. No exceptions." The board broke into applause. But Samuel wasn't finished. He continued, "Furthermore, we will open a foundation, funded from my own account, to assist elderly customers and low-income families. Let them never again fear humiliation at the counter of their own bank." Tears welled in the eyes of some staff. The weight of his words felt like a cleansing rain, washing away the arrogance of the day before. And then Samuel looked directly at Victor. "You laughed at a man you thought was powerless. Remember this for the rest of your life. Never underestimate the person standing before you. You don't know their story, their strength, or their worth." Victor was dismissed on the spot. Days later, Samuel returned to that same branch. This time, when he entered, he saw something different. The tellers greeted every customer warmly, offering smiles instead of sneers. The farmer he had helped came to thank him again, bringing fresh fruit from his field. Samuel accepted it humbly, as if it were gold. And in that moment, Samuel knew his late father would have been proud. Because wealth is fleeting, power fades, but kindness, that is the only balance that never runs out.